Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 108A.
I'm Cam and this is Julie. This week's Torah portion we're moving through and we're in Deuteronomy 11:26 to 16:17. So let's start with literally the very beginning. Okay. So when we look at 11:26, I saw something that if we've talked about before, I don't remember talking about it. Okay. So I thought I'd bring it up since I found it today or this week. And it has to do with the curse and the blessing. Okay, if you notice the very first part, it's a curse and a blessing. Okay, right. A is just a generic, and we really don't get the specifics of it until later on in Deuteronomy towards the end. So right now it's just put out there like, hey, there's going to be this blessing and there's going to be this curse that will come. Just a generic. But then when we go down and we look at verse 27, it says the blessing, and then we see in 28 it says and the curse. Well,
so there's a specific blessing and a specific curse.
And what's cool about this is on 27, there's an Aleph-Tav. The Aleph-Tav in Hebrew is often not translated because it really doesn't have a linguistic function in these places that we're using it.
Right.
The place that it has a linguistic function, like it, or to mean a pronoun or something, it's being used. But Aleph-Tav is the first and the last. It is to encompass, right? Aleph is represents the Lord, okay, the strength, and the Tav is the covenant. So the strength of the covenant is what we have. Yeah. So what we have here in the Hebrew in 27, it says, and the blessing is the Aleph-Tav, the strength of the covenant blessing. So I was like, oh, all right, that's cool. And then it says, when you obey the commands of the Lord your God, which I command you today. So there's a blessing. There's this blessing. Then if you go and look in 28, it says, and the curse. There is no Aleph-Tav there.
Okay.
Okay, it says, and the curse. But it says, if you do not obey the commandments of the Lord your God. But that's not the kicker of this verse.
Oh, okay.
It
What's
says,
the kicker?
but turn aside from the ways in which I command you today to go after other mighty gods, which you have not known. Okay. So then I had the V8 moment.
Okay.
So it's not just that you disobeyed.
Right.
It's that by disobeying, you've now run after other gods.
Yes.
So that made me think of last week when he's like, don't forget in chapter 8, right? If you forget, if you don't keep my commands, then you forget about me. And once you forget about me, then you go chasing after other gods. You're looking for something else to fill that void that only he can fill.
Right.
So right here, it's not just you didn't listen to me. It's you didn't listen to me and you went after another god. So then that made me go to Matthew 5.
Okay.
Where it says, Matthew 5:19, that the least of these will not do the commands and teach others not
to do. Right.
So I was like, well, wait a minute. There has to be something there because we know in this week's Torah portion, Deuteronomy 13 talks about if anyone draws you away, away from the Lord, that they're to be done away with, killed. But in Matthew 5:19, it doesn't say that they're going to be killed. It just says they're least in the kingdom. Yes.
Is it because they're not going after another god?
I believe that's what it is.
They're just
They just don't know any better. Right.
They don't know any better.
We didn't know any better before.
Right.
When we're like, no, don't do that, because we're denying Jesus if you do that. We didn't know any better, but we were still chasing after him.
Right.
But it just made us least in the kingdom.
Our heart still wanted to do what was right.
Yes. It just made us not very usable.
Right.
Because then if the Holy Spirit says, no, do that, we're like, oh, no. So we're not walking out the role like we did, but they weren't chasing other gods.
Yes.
Now, here's what does happen is we know in that process before you chase another god, as you start to move away from his commands, then things start getting mixed in and you don't know any better. You don't know that those are mixed in items that shouldn't be there.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I just had a thought. So in Revelation, there's this punishment for the people who take the mark of the beast. It's like it's done.
Right.
Because no longer are you just being disobedient. Now you have aligned yourself with this other God.
Yes. Right. You are taking, not only are you lying, you're taking on his form, his identity.
His image, yes.
What we're supposed to be doing with our living God.
Right.
We're supposed to walk as Yeshua in that body. Okay.
Right.
We're taking on that body. They're taking on that body. So that's why there is no more turnaround. And, we talked about this before with the sin of the golden calf where, when they did that, they literally went into covenant.
Right.
It was a blood covenant. That's what sexual intercourse is. It's a blood covenant. So your first, right, is always the one you chase after.
Yeah.
So Israel, our first, what we'd like to say is the Lord, we've always had we've come up with a lot of idolatrous stuff.
Yes.
So our flesh is always trying to go back to that first, what we first knew.
Yeah, and I can see why it's so important not to have images, because if you'll stick to that command, specifically that one, we need to do all of them, but specifically that one, then we'll never fall for the image of the Antichrist.
Right.
But if we tolerate images, then that one's going to creep in, and they're not even going to know.
And it's going to look like an angel of light. Why wouldn't, if we had these, why wouldn't we take that one?
If these represent light, then this one, right.
Right.
Ooh,
it's so
I can
easy.
see how dangerous that can be.
Right. So we have where, so I want to move down a little bit, back on the curse thing. When we go down and we look at verse 29, still of chapter 11 of Deuteronomy, it says about when you go into the land, it says, you shall put the blessing on Mount Gerizim. Okay, there's an Aleph-Tav there.
Okay.
So you're going to put the Aleph-Tav blessing, okay, sign of the covenant, on that mount. And the curse on Mount Ebal. There's an Aleph-Tav in front of this curse, which means the strength of the covenant in the curse. What? Maybe do the, what?
Yeah. What?
What?
There's no curse.
And then I thought, well, wait a minute. This is in the land.
Yes.
And in the land, he is what provides our blessing, but he's also what takes our curse. No curse. He is going to take on, and did take on, the full brunt end of the curse. Therefore, it can be Aleph-Tav curse, because he, Messiah, will encompass that as well, taking it away from us.
Right.
So here's my thought, because it always bothered me. Why does he tell them, later on we'll see, side with one of half of Israel go here and half of Israel go there? That always bothered me.
It bothered me too.
Like, why would you
I don't want to be the one on the curse side.
Why are you putting half of them on the curse? I mean, I'd be like, could I switch tribes, please? Or why did I get the short end of the stick?
Right.
But if we look at it like this, the curse, Messiah is the one that takes that curse. It's not such a bad place to be.
He's the one that takes on the tree of knowledge and defeats it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yes.
The mixing.
Right.
Yeah. The blessing and the curse.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And, okay, let me take you just a little bit. Let's go back a little bit. When we look at last week's in Deuteronomy 7:26, it says, and do not bring any abomination into your house, lest you be accused like it. Utterly loathe it and utterly hate it, for it is accused. Okay, that's if you look up at 25, that's talking about these idols, these abominations, these gods you're going to worship. If you bring them in, you become an abomination just like them. Okay, back to the idea of the curse. Okay. The Lord's the curse because we brought those things in.
Right.
He wasn't the thing that was brought in that was a curse, okay?
Right.
But he took care of that, because as much as we like to say Israel came in empty-handed, their hearts weren't empty-handed. We still brought in the stuff, as we do when we come into salvation, as we come to recognize who he is, we still bring our trash in.
Right.
And he's slowly cleaning that out.
That's why it's work out your salvation daily with fear and trembling, not you're in. Right. So let's just sit here and wait.
Right, and just twiddle our thumbs. So that abomination idea made me go over into this week again, where it talks about the food, and that's in chapter 14 of Deuteronomy. We're seeing where he's going back over the food laws, okay? Now let's look at verse 3. Verse 3:14 says, and do not eat whatever is abominable. Okay. So then I started thinking, house. Don't bring an abomination into your house. Well, this is our house too, right? This is our tent.
Right. So don't bring an abomination in.
Right. And we know back in Leviticus 11 where it talks about we can become an abomination like what we've eaten.
Right.
So I thought, oh gosh, it really does go together. Don't do it in the whole of Israel, because it will be an abomination to the nation.
Right.
It'll also be an abomination to us. But then let's go to our physical homes. Because remember, we're spirits with a body. Okay?
Right.
So this is the tent, just a temporary covering of what our spirit is, or our soul. Okay. So we don't want trash. We don't want abomination inside either. That goes for food. That goes for things that we watch. That goes for things that we listen to. Any of that. That's why the Lord's like, be so careful what you entertain. Right. Be careful what comes in through your eyes, through your mouth, right? Not just out of your mouth, but in your mouth, because that's what's going to taint what's inside. But the point here is that we recognize that we can become an abomination because of what is around us.
That's so scary.
And what we take in, right? And the Lord is giving us clear
Thank goodness for
rules.
Yeshua.
Yes. The Lord is giving us clear rules, a boundary, a safe fence to live within. You know, look over the fence.
Right.
No thanks. The problem is we look over the fence and go,
"Ooh, the grass is greener over there."
Exactly. And then we fool ourselves and we get over there and like, I'm parched. I'm so thirsty. I need to go back to my yard.
Right.
And then sometimes we're lost. I can't find my fence. I can't find my fence.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do that. We want to stay in our yard.
That's as a whole where we're at, I would say, about 10 years ago. We're like, oh, we're so thirsty and we're so hungry out here. Oh, we need to get back to, where is it? And we've slowly, steadily been making our way back to
the ancient paths.
Yes.
Okay. Jeremiah. Well, in a way, this hooks. If you look at 12:9, it says, because you have not yet entered the rest and the inheritance which the Lord your God is giving you, but you shall pass over to the Jordan and shall dwell in the land which the Lord your God is giving to you to inherit, and he shall give you rest from all your enemies round about, and you shall dwell in safety. So that's back to the yard idea, back into the yard. But this is a process. You notice he's like, you're not in the rest yet. You're not even in the land, which means Moses really never got to experience the rest.
Yeah.
Which also means neither did Messiah.
I know.
So Messiah came, took everything for us, and still never really is in that complete rest, because he said,
he's always saying, while it's still day, I got to do the work of my Father. We got to work.
Right.
It's work time.
Right. It's not rest time.
It's not rest time.
That's
it's
right.
Work time.
So he's working. We're working. And while Israel went into the land, and that generation had some rest, but the completed fulfillment of it hasn't happened and won't happen until the millennium. Okay. Let's look at 14:21 now. And I literally was driving through Wendy's a year ago, I think, getting a salad. And all of a sudden, this verse, I was like, oh, I get it. I've literally thought about this verse and I got it. So it says in 21, it says, do not eat whatever dies of itself. Give it to the stranger who is within your gates to eat it, or sell it to a foreigner. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. So here we have, look, it's okay if that lamb or that bull or whatever died. That's fine. Just my people don't eat it, but you guys sell it. Get a profit off of it.
Right.
Give it to the foreigner or to the stranger. Not the foreigner or the stranger who has connected themselves to Israel, but those that are in the land.
Right.
There's certain
They're living
things,
among you.
Yes. There's certain things that those who live among you still have to do in following Torah because it affects the land.
Right.
But there are not things that they have to do that have to do with his people.
Right.
If you're like, I'm not a part of his people, I'm just hanging out in the land, then you don't have to eat clean. Let me back up. You're going to eat a certain way because it affects the land. But there's going to be certain restrictions between common and set apart that you're not going to deal with.
Right.
Person who eats clean can still eat common, meaning things that it died to itself, things like that.
Right.
Here's why I found, here's where my epiphany was. If we go to Acts 15:20, which is the famous, the 4 things that the Gentiles have to do, that's it.
Right.
No, that's not true. It's the 4 things they do in order to get into the synagogue so they can then learn about the Torah.
Right.
But here's what
it's your starting
tells you, right, it's your starting. Here's what tells you that these have been set apart. And it's because it says, we write to them to abstain from defilements of idols and from whoring and from that strangled and from blood. Okay. Something that dies of itself is within its own blood. It's not blood out.
Right.
So its blood is soaked into that meat. Mm-hmm. But his people can't do that.
Right.
So if there was ever, I love how the Lord does this with the text. If there's ever a thought, but those people aren't grafted in.
Right.
That's right. No. The fact is, if they weren't grafted in, then it wouldn't have mattered if it was in some blood.
Right.
It wouldn't matter. Right. Because those rules were fine for people who just dwelled among them. Right. But not those who attached themselves to Israel.
Right.
I just love that. It's right here in the Torah that when you read that, so when they're saying it, people who know the Torah are like, those Gentiles, they are bringing them, allowing them to come in without converting to Judaism.
Right.
They were accepting the same rules, the same law they're going to live under. Just let them learn it as they go. Don't try to make them learn it all at one time.
Right.
Again, back to your walking.
That was part of the renewed covenant. Right. Renewed meaning it's the same covenant. It was just presented now in a different way because now Messiah has come.
Right. And now we've got a heavenly aspect.
Yes.
As long as
that's what we're talking about in the Torah.
Oh, good. My last thing I want to talk about real quick has to do with the tithes, but it has more to do with fellowship. If we see in 12, it's 6 and 7, and then 13 and 14 cover it, and then 12, 18. But let's look right here. It says in 6, and there shall be, and there you shall take your ascent offerings, your slaughters, your tithes, your contributions of your hand, your vow offerings, and your voluntary offerings, and the firstlings of your herd and of your flock. And there you shall eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all that you put your hand to, you and your household, in which the Lord your God has blessed you. Okay, so I see it like this. The temple, the place he's going to set up, it's Daddy's house.
Right.
So this is the idea of, as we see in this week also, in 16, we go 3 times. The men are going to go 3 times a year, right?
Right.
Okay, it's come to your parents' house.
Yeah.
When you grow up, you come home, you go home, you have a great meal, you enjoy it with your parents, and then you go home. Right. That's what this is. This is Daddy's house.
Yeah.
We don't go empty-handed because we're always bringing back what he's blessed us with.
Right.
And I'm like, I love that. That makes it never like, oh, I got to bring a goat up there. No, it's like, oh, I'm going to see my parents. Yeah. I love my parents. I love my dad. He provided the goat for me anyway. Absolutely, I want to bring it.
Right.
And then he has these we listed the types of things that are to bring. Now, of that, there's the tithes. The tithes is just one section. And, you always hear, oh, got to do the tithe, got to do the tithe. However, according to Torah, there are 4 types of tithes. And those 4 types of tithes, none of them are applicable really today.
Right.
Except for the one that you bring in for the poor and the widow.
The widows.
But we don't have a common house that does that. But we do have individual ministries that do that.
Right.
So we can give to them. But again, there's no required tithing. So when we hear, well, it's a sin if you don't tithe, that's not true because we don't have a temple and we don't have Levites and we don't have priests right now.
Right.
Now, once the temple's set up and we've got Levites and we got priests, we are told that we are to tithe to them, whether we agree that temple is the right temple or not.
Right.
We don't get to make that say because there is a temple, or once there is a temple and there are Levites and there are priests, we are not in the position to go, well, they're not my priests, they're not my Levites. We still are in the position to give. Now, what that looks like, I'm not going to debate on that.
Look how corrupt the temple was in Yeshua's time, and he still did everything that was required of him.
Absolutely.
That had to do with the temple.
Yeah, great point. Great
so,
point. He didn't say
if we're
going to
walk like Yeshua and we're going to, be like him, then
if even the Son of God, with the living logos in him, didn't say you guys are corrupt, so I'm not going to do this.
What right do we have to say you're corrupt?
Exactly, none at all. Whoa. So at that point, we will be able to we will be able to do those things. You know why? To go to our Father's house.
Yes.
Now, what that looks like, I have no idea, but I know that we are not physically capable of doing tithes, as the Lord says. That doesn't mean offerings. Offerings, absolutely, we can give, but there's not a 10% requirement of offerings. That's give of your heart.
Right.
All right, we're going to end on that note. We thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on the flip side with Julie and the prophets. Shalom.